Have you ever had one of those days where yesterday everything felt fine, your high notes were there, your transitions were there, your balance was there, your voice felt coordinated. Then you wake up today and suddenly something is gone. Maybe your head voice feels shaky and inefficient. Maybe your chest voice feels really heavy and unwieldy. Maybe what we often call mix, your sort of middle zone where lots of possibilities exist. Maybe that feels unstable. Maybe certain notes simply don't want to cooperate. And the frustrating part is that nothing obvious happened. You didn't suddenly forget how to sing. You can't pinpoint an event where something changed, and you didn't wake up with a completely different voice. So, what's going on? If you've experienced that, you are, as I like to say, in a very large club. And the good news is that most of the time it doesn't mean you've lost a skill. It means you're working with a living system. And living systems change all the time. The voice is always a moving entity. Hello there, if you're new here, my name is Dan Callaway. I teach musical theater voice and vocal pedagogy at Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. Spent more than 25 years performing professionally and more than 50 years, 50. Spent a lot of time teaching voice. I've spent more than 25 years performing professionally and more than 15 years helping singers build healthy, sustainable voices, and I'm very glad you're here with me today. A big misconception that we inherit as singers is that the voice is supposed to function like a machine. In fact, I think a lot of our perception of the way things work as a machine has become a problem, but I won't go down that rabbit trail. We think, I could do it yesterday, so I should be able to replicate it today. And that makes sense on one level, except the voice, as we've said, is not a machine. It's tissue, it's muscle, it's coordination, it is autonomic nervous system, it is some involuntary mechanisms that we can't even really pinpoint sometimes. It's hydration, it is sleep, it's recovery, it's emotion. It is a living, biological, energetic event. And all of those things affect the way our voices function moment to moment, day to day. So let's start with the most obvious one, inflammation. So even a small amount of swelling can change vocal function. Your vocal folds are layered structures. You have muscle and you have connective tissue. You have the superficial layers that create that beautiful flexible vibratory pattern, the epithelium or the mucosa that has an independent vibrating pattern. And when those tissues become swollen, even slightly, they become less flexible. They're not as responsive, they're not as precise. Sometimes the effect is very dramatic and sometimes it's kind of subtle. You can't quite tell what's going on. So sometimes you just notice something feels off. I don't feel like I've got as much access to, I guess, vocal nuance. I had a teacher in grad school who described it like this. When the mucosa or the epithelium around the folds is healthy, not swollen, it acts kind of like the skin on the back of your hand. There's a give there. And when it's swollen, it's more like the palm of your hand. And so you don't have this independent movement, really two vibrating bodies of the muscular body of the fold and the cover of the fold vibrating together. So we lose that. So that's a lot of times when we have laryngitis, it sounds like that because the folds aren't able to function in a subtle way. So watch that. If you've got inflammation, you really can't beat rest, hydration, healthy food, and healthy food with a lot of water in it. So lots of fruit and veg. Remember, you get hydration from food sources as well. And here's an important thing. Your voice can feel different before it sounds dramatically different. So when you're tuning, you're like, something doesn't feel like it's quite coordinating the way I'm used to it coordinating. That is worth really remembering, tracking, staying curious about, because sometimes if you notice something going on, you're like, oh, yeah, that thing happened. I'm feeling kind of heavy or anxious, or whoa, I had 3 hours of sleep last night. That is worth remembering. And the body often knows first. Another thing about inflammation, if you are a human who owns two X chromosomes and you have a menstrual cycle, I mean, my friend Jules, who's a terrific soprano, she said, I feel like I have like one good week per month to sing. And so the body, hormonal levels are shifting, inflammation is happening, lots of things are going on. So really don't underestimate the effect of that. So you really want to work with your body, pay attention to where you may be in hormonal shifts throughout a monthly cycle. Another huge factor, and I like to ignore this myself, so this is for me too. Another huge factor is sleep, is your rest. So your nervous system does an enormous amount of recovery work while you sleep. Motor learning gets layered in, gets wired in, different coordinations, tissue recovery, inflammation management, all kinds of things. And you can do all kinds of research about the tasks that the brain does overnight while sleeping. It's really phenomenal how little we know, and that what we do know is literally mind-blowing. So when sleep quality drops, vocal consistency can also drop as well. So it's not because you've lost technique, it's because the system is recovering differently or didn't have enough time to recover. And when we have sleep issues are really, really tough, because a lot of times we lie there and we would love to sleep, but the body just won't shut down. So as gentle as we can be to ourselves, as compassionate and understanding, we can slow our breath down and, just say, well, I'm just going to be horizontal for now, So anyway, if you yourself have some good tips on how to handle sleep issues, help somebody out in the comments today. But sleep, rest. And, take a look at your bedtime habits. I'm the worst at this. I will take the phone to bed and do my games. Oh, it's really hard. You have to really fight in today's context to have a life that's not buzzing with lights and electricity all the time. So the body doesn't love that. Think about too, if you've ever, if you've lost electricity for a few days, just that shift where your body starts to relate more directly to the patterns of day and night. Yeah, we're completely out of sync with that now. So that's something we have to look at. So obviously your hydration plays a huge role. Like I said, plenty of things with water, fruit and veg with water. And stress plays a big role, So looking at stress levels, looking at environment, looking at how you structure your day, things like that. So those play big roles. I won't harp on those, but don't underestimate what kind of role they play. But stress links right into a hugely overlooked factor that I think that we often negate, and that's your overall nervous system. So when we feel threatened, stressed, overwhelmed, rushed, anxious, uncertain, excited, adrenalized, the body often becomes more protective, more guarded, more muscular, more engaged, more effortful. The body starts preparing for work or preparing for defense. And the voice can't help but get swept up into that process because it is part of the whole system. So this can create what I often think of as muscular guarding. Your nervous system is coming in to defend from a perceived threat. The body is not trying to sabotage you, it is trying to protect you. The problem is that those protective mechanisms can lead to inefficiencies and energetic blocks in letting expression through. So on days when your voice feels limited, I usually encourage you to become curious before you become critical. I'm working on this as well. Sometimes when my nervous system goes haywire, it's very hard to find my curiosity, because when you're buzzing with anxiety, you're straight up scared. And it's very hard to just tell yourself to take some slower breaths, bring your attention to your prefrontal cortex. I had a very anxious day yesterday, and I was very unsuccessful in regulating myself. So sometimes you have to be really compassionate to yourself about what's going on. We live in an anxious age, so there's a lot of energy to process sometimes. But like I said, how can we become curious before we can become critical? I wonder what's going on. This is really uncomfortable. I wonder what's happening. So instead of what's wrong with me, try what changed. That's a much better question. Yeah, what changed? Oh, I had to get that project done, and I thought, if I don't get that project done, and what if it happens and then I fail at it and then I look terrible, and oh my gosh, and then I'm never going to have time to do these other things. So on those days when the voice feels limited, I usually want to encourage you to become curious before you become critical. Instead of what's wrong with me, what has changed, what do I notice? Literally just set a timer for 1 minute to breathe slowly. It'll help you become present with yourself, and you'll be able to make some connections that might be helpful. You can say, how did I sleep? How stressed am I currently right now? Am I recovering from something? Have I been talking all day? Have I been doing a heavier singing task earlier? Am I carrying extra muscular effort? Am I feeling places in my body where there's some static engagement? Do I feel safe? Do I feel grounded? What is the system, or what are the parts of the system trying to tell me? Really important questions to ask yourself, really helpful. Let's talk about something more nuts and bolts, practical, because one mistake that we make on these days is immediately trying to force the missing coordination back into existence, and that almost always doesn't work. Instead, I like to reacquaint all of the parts of my system with possibilities. I'm not going to demand an outcome. We're going to explore what's possible, especially on days when we're feeling a little more limited. It's a good opportunity to test technique. Does this technique work on a day when I don't feel like my full physicality is available to me? So one of my favorite tools is just simple yodeling. So mode 1, mode 2, back and forth. Notice I'm using E and U for the head voice, A and Ah for the chest voice. They promote mode 1 just by virtue of their shape and frequency. Just back and forth and just noticing. Don't fix anything. Notice, is it moving readily? Is it a little clunky in the yodels? That's often a good indicator. This also promotes laryngeal freedom. Yodeling helps the larynx respond to vocal tract shape, so it gets your systems talking to each other and connecting rather than locking in, trying to force an outcome. So we're not fixing, we're not forcing, we're observing. Yodeling's a really good little test. Also, some just very gentle breath connection exercises from the bottom. I call these shenanigans. So you're just literally doing different things with your torso. I literally am just sort of pulsing from the torso, letting the larynx respond. So just giving it some looseness and just preparing the voice to make sound. The larynx is relating to acoustic shape, and then the larynx is also relating to breath energy, breath pattern. Another thing I really like is modal mixture, so exploring density continua, so playing with a lighter chest voice, heavier head voice, lighter head, heavier chest. So just reminding the nervous system that there are many pathways available. So like if I were to do a light chest, hey, hey, and it also will tell you, and it also can alert you to what is available and what's not. Just little phase differences in the vibratory pattern. Different shapes in your different modes. And then you go to a place where you might have availability to both head and chest. So like say if you start on this D4, playing around, letting things yodel, letting things transition, and just so you sort of see what's available. So I call those modal mixtures. You can make up any exercise in which you're switching up mode 1 and mode 2, blending them together, various densities of both. Those are very helpful. You can also do really small messe di voce exercises. So you just take a comfortable pitch, you get a little louder, a little softer, stay balanced, stay curious, notice what remains available. So even on that D, you can just mode 1, really light. That's a lot of space in the hose here. So you'll just start really light. So any of those are really helpful. You can do those in head voice. So staying in mode 1, staying in mode 2, staying in the same mode. Or you can also do a little modal cross. So if you go, I'll do an ah on this G4. Those are good checks. And even if it's clunky, that's fine. So you're just exploring, depending on what state you're in that day, but these are good little checks. Those messe di voce exercises are really great I think Matt Edwards from Shenandoah, I saw a recent reel from him where he just talked about, he does this really simple and very effective exercise where you're going from breathy to buzzy back to breathy, and that's coordinating a lot of different things. So that's a really good one. Variations on that exercise are very good. Because your voice didn't disappear, it's just the access, it's the coordination, it is your physiological setup for that day, physiological and emotional. And access can frequently be rebuilt through observation, and we can regain access by observing what's going on with the voice rather than forcing an outcome. So if things are working a little differently on a day and you understand how your systems are working together, you have some tools that you can use in order to navigate that well. So access can be rebuilt through observation, curiosity. I would say rarely ever force. You might get it through force, but it won't be very satisfying and it won't be sustainable. Sometimes there are legitimate limitations. So if you're sick, some days you were just sick. I had laryngitis in the spring. I literally couldn't sing full capacity for about 5 weeks. No matter what I did, I was not going to make the sounds I wanted to make. So there are those times. If you are recovering from an illness, you really have to take it easy. If there's been inflammation, you have to really gauge, how ready am I to sing? Really listen to the body. Is this sustainable? Does this feel healing? Does this feel vibrant and regenerative? Or does this feel very taxing? And does this feel like I'm about to blow it out again? Yeah. If you're significantly inflamed, that's another thing. Again, you have to really pay attention to what's going on with the physiology. And if it's a day in which singing is just not going to happen, that's when you rest, that's when you hydrate, that's when you really take it easy. And if something feels genuinely concerning, if there's anything that you're worried about, that's when you need to reach out to a qualified ENT or laryngologist, speech language pathologist. That sort of help is what you need there. If something feels genuinely concerning, if you're afraid that there might be a pathology, it's best to just go get that checked out so that you can rule it out. That is a different scenario. So you have to really pay attention. Is my voice in a state of readiness to sing today? And that's where voice professionals, laryngologists, speech language pathologists, they become incredibly important. They know things that are outside of the realm of my expertise. So if there's a singer who has a pathology, I will work in tandem with the laryngologist, with the speech language pathologist to see what is their program of care, how can I support that, and how can we harmonize our efforts so that the singer can have the best outcome. But for many singers, barring a pathology or barring something that's just going on physiologically, it isn't that I lost my voice. The problem is my system changed today. Those are very different things, and we can really tune into those things with curiosity and be like, okay, that's why that feels different today. And once we understand that the voice is a living, biological, energetic system, we can stop expecting perfect consistency and start building adaptability. What is consistent is our access to our systems. What is consistent is our ability to duck and dive. What is consistent is our ability to adjust and sing with the instrument we have on a particular day at a particular time. Adaptability is one of the most important skills any singer can develop because the voice is always moving through time. It's not a static thing. We can't pin it down. If you'd like help understanding how these systems work together, head over to my Work With Me page below. You will find the free voice map framework, the voice map course, the resource library, and options for working with me one-on-one. Everything there is designed to help singers move from confusion toward clarity and understand how these systems all interact. And on a personal note, this August 5th through 7th, I'll be performing my new play, Train to Cleveland, with John Ruskin at the Circle and Star Theatre in Hampstead as part of the Camden Fringe Festival in London. If you're in the UK or Europe or looking for an excuse to visit London this summer, I would love to see you there. You'll find information below in the description. And remember, your voice is not a machine. It is a living system. Stay curious, stay gentle, stay compassionate toward yourself, gather information. Trust that you're in a process. Take it easy on days when you need to take it easy. And remember, there is only one you. Somebody would love to hear the story only you can sing. Love much. Now go sing.